Yeah, beyond the pale, I extend eyes to waters. They send our sons to war. Yeah, beyond the pale. Yeah, they sent our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reason, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics, a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings, they parade through our towns. They distract and divide us, with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. The anti-human agenda, plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold, heartless play. Eat insects, they sneer while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal with the tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedoms all cease. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end. Twisting truth in their grip till our minds start to bend. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Order out of chaos, their sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond the pale lies the truth they conceal, a world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where the power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will prevail. Beyond the pale. Beyond the pale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Beyond the pale, yeah.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of RB Ham Beyond the Pale. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is going to be a banger. I've been really preparing hard for this one, and I assembled a great panel of guests as they're all coming in. Salim, hi. Don, hi. E. Michael Jones, an esteemed inaugural guest to Beyond the Pale. And, of course, Matt Ehret. The guys in the bottom there, they've all been here many times. So as far as introducing people, I'm going to start with Mr. E. Michael Jones. Now, let's see if I got this right. E. Michael Jones is an American Catholic writer, former professor and editor of Cultural Wars magazine. He holds a PhD in American literature from Temple University and is the author of numerous books critiquing modern culture, society, and ideology from a traditional Catholic perspective. Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Thank you. Could
you give me a little bit, 3 minutes, just to tell my audience who you are and what you're all about? And thank you for being here, by the way. I mean, I've been chasing you for a while. I'm glad you're finally here. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I started out to be an academic. I taught in Germany for a couple of years in the 1970s, came back and got my PhD from Temple University in American literature and got a job as a professor of American literature at St. Mary's College, Catholic college across the street from Notre Dame University, and moved my family out to South Bend from Philadelphia, where we all grew up, and got fired 1 year after I got there because of my stand against abortion. So I'm thinking, called my dissertation advisor and said, I just got fired because of my stand on abortion. And he said, I told you shouldn't have gone there. And he said, no, I'm against abortion. And there was this dead silence at the other end of the line. He couldn't comprehend that. So at that point, I got out of academia and started a magazine called Fidelity, which is now called Culture Wars. And I've been doing that for 45 years now.
Well, thank you so much for showing up. And now also, I will introduce Don Jeffries, the legendary, the greatest genius that nobody knows about. Please subscribe to his Substack. He's written tons of books. It would take me a while to go through them all, but he's one of my heroes. He's like me, a former left-wing ideologue, a classic liberal, believed in freedom of speech and all this stuff, and is just as confused and unsettled as I am as what's going on, because the left was taken over by the blue-haired wackos. And everybody says, well, like in his case, he didn't leave the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party left him. In my case, I didn't leave the NDP. The NDP left me, sort of thing. So Don, he's an American author, researcher, and novelist, a longtime investigator of the JFK assassination and other historical conspiracies. Since the 1970s, he is best known for books like Hidden History, an expose of modern crimes, conspiracies, and cover-ups in American politics, and Survival of the Richest. And this great book you should all get, Masking the Truth, How COVID-19 Destroyed Civil Liberties and Shut Down the World. Thank you for being here, Don. A quick 30-second dissertation of, what you've found so unsettling with the last couple of weeks.
Well, so nobody wants World War III. I don't know if we're getting or not, but as someone I've been against every war in my lifetime and would have been against every war probably except for the War for Independence and the War for 1812. I find this absolutely ridiculous. And I want to say I'm honored to be here with you, Michael Jones. I saw you on Jason Whitlock's Fearless podcast. That's where I first saw you. I watch his podcast all the time. Very impressed with you. I'm a Catholic myself, a fallen Catholic, so I can really appreciate what you're saying.
And I'd like to welcome Salim Mansur. He's a professor emeritus of political science at the University of Western Ontario in Canada. Born in Kolkata, India, he earned his PhD from the University of Toronto. He has been a columnist for publications including the London Free Press and Toronto Sun, with expertise in international relations, comparative politics, South Asia, the Middle East, and strong advocacy for free speech. And that just scratches the surface. Welcome, Salim. Quick 30 seconds. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you, RB. Well, it is a tremendous pleasure to be with E. Michael Jones, who I've been reading for some time now, and with, of course, Don Jeffries and Matt Ehret. I think I have the same distinction as with Don and Michael, you yourself, possibly Matt, I don't know, that I have fought every war and have been defeated. If there was medal or a Victoria Cross for people like me who dared to stand up against the establishment and dared to stand up against the non-Irish, then I carry all the wounds, till the final one was that the Conservative Party expelled me because they couldn't have a guy like me who spoke against the Canadian sacred cows like multiculturalism. So thank you. Thank you, RB.
Thank you, Salim. And Matthew Ehret. He's a Canadian journalist, lecturer, historian, and founder of the Canadian Patriot Review. Go to CanadianPatriot.org, please, and sign up. He is a co-founder and director of the Rising Tide Foundation, a senior fellow at the American University in Moscow, and that's so great. So, how many times do you get a senior fellow at the American University in Moscow on your stream? And a contributor to outlets including Strategic Culture Foundation, the Duran, and you were great on the Duran the other day. Thanks, Matt. I love it when you bring the Canadian perspective to that show. That is a really good podcast. If you want to know what's going on in Ukraine and the Middle East, that's where you go to, the Duran. You've also appeared in Asia Times, Global Times, and at Zero Hedge. He's the author of the multi-volume series, The Untold History of Canada. I have two of those books on my bookcase back there. and of the clash of the two Americas, exploring geopolitics, suppressed history, and multipolar world dynamics. And thank you for deigning to appear on my tiny little podcast once again, Matt. I love you so much for doing that because you're so popular everywhere else. I'm amazed you're here. Thank you. Uh-oh, you muted yourself, Matt. You're muted. I hate when that happens.
Oops. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that. Yeah, my cat was making a racket, so I hit mute. No, it's always a pleasure, RB, and honestly, it's a high point in my month when we get to hang out together, and very edifying. So I'm looking forward to this chat. Thank you for including me in the esteemed guest that you've pulled together today.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay, we're going to start with sharing the screen. I think. Oh, okay. Continue your browser. Okay. And pray, here we go. Praying for Armageddon. This is what we're going to start out on because I think it's something we better be talking about. This is a short 2-minute trailer for the film Praying for Armageddon, which came out in 2023. You can go on YouTube and find it. I encourage everybody to watch this. This is a quick little taste of what is going on right now.
I'm going to talk about war. The Bible is full of war. Jesus, he said, if you don't have a sword, buy one because the time's coming you're going to need a sword.
I just want to quickly mention, I don't think he's actually talking about, I've never heard Jesus say that. But I thought I heard Jesus say, if you live by the sword, you die by the sword. He completely forgets that part.
Whatever.
End of time. When is that? That's right now. The next thing that's about to happen is the return of the Lord Jesus Christ.
In Christ's holy name we pray. We who are evangelical Christians are going to have a true friend in the White House.
They are looking for the U.S. relationship with Israel, ultimately, to bring about Armageddon, so that if the shit really hits the fan, we're in it immediately.
There have been two nations created to glorify God, Israel and the United States of America.
Israel will not go down because of us. No one will go down that is our ally, that is not trying to attack us and kill us.
I want to see Jesus slay the enemy and watch the blood run up to the bits of the horses. How many of y'all hear that things may change in this country?
We're called to be warriors, and we need you to get in the fight.
The countdown to Armageddon has begun.
So everybody go on YouTube and watch that whole film. It's fantastic and it's edifying. If people don't really, a lot of people just brush this off and say, "Oh, this Christian Zionist, these crazy Christian Zionists, they're not that dangerous," because we remember them from the 1980s and 1990s with Jimmy Baker and Jimmy Swaggart and all that nonsense and how they were just a joke. They're no joke any longer. Mr. Jones, may you start this discussion out?
Yeah, we just had an incident here in the United States where Donald Trump appointed a beauty queen to be on the religious freedom panel. And it was, we're kind of used to this type of thing where everybody kind of just gets together and talks how wonderful we all are. But she came out swinging. Her name was Carrie Prejean Bowler. She came out swinging. She says, "I'm a Catholic." And then she turned to the rabbis and says, you can't impose your Zionist religion on me. And she blew up the whole discussion by coming on with a strong identity and then identifying Christian Zionism as an alien ideology.
Beautiful.
Now, what happened after
that, right? She got fired for that, though, right?
Yeah, she got kicked off. Kicked off. The lieutenant governor of Texas kicked her off. And exactly what she needed to do, what he needed to do to make the whole controversy. So it backfired on him. What we just this past week, there's a religious organization of religious freedom in the military, something like that. They got hundreds of complaints because now, according to Hegseth, who's the Secretary of Defense or War, depending on who you talk to, we've got all of these commanders spreading Christian Zionism throughout the military. And the people who are not on board with Christian Zionism are complaining because now they're saying that it's using these terminology. Armageddon. We're going to rebuild the third temple. Donald Trump is going to bring about the return of Jesus Christ. This is a virulent form of this kind of messianic worldview that is now, I think, a function of the desperation that these people are feeling, that the world is slipping out of their control, and they need to double down. This is the sense I'm getting here.
Down.
This is the sense I'm getting. We're at the end of the Third Republic. I'm the guy who started that idea. First Republic began in 1781 with the Constitution, lasted until 1861 with the outbreak of the Civil War. Certain things will not pass into the Second Republic, like slavery. That's over now. Second Republic begins in 1865 with the end of the Civil War. It goes to 1945, 80 years again. Nothing lasts longer than 80 years. And now we have the Third Republic, the inaugural institution is the United Nations. We're talking about rule-based law, international law. The myth is the Holocaust narrative. And what we're seeing now is the end of all of these things. And a lot of people think it's the end of the world. You know, it's in a sense the end of the world as we know it, the end of the Third Republic. And they always end with a war. And now we got the war in Iran that is proving to be a catastrophe for the United States and especially for Israel. That's where we stand now.
You think so, Don? Like, there's a lot. That's an interpretation that I often hear a lot. Okay, so the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. You have all these groups that want this thing to start for their own self-interest, but it's going to blow up in their face. And I think Mr. Jones has a point there. This could really come back to haunt these people. What do you think?
Well, I certainly think it's going to be a catastrophe, or already is, for the United States and for Israel. But I think, and I maintain a little hopium here. And I think the one good thing, and I don't know why it's happening, it seems like nothing happens unless they want it to happen. But we're talking about things that were not talked about for a long time. I mean, we have Candace Owens and people like that talking about Zog, Zionist occupied government. That was, relegated to the dark corners of the most extreme right-wing world for a long time. Now it's talked about openly. Tucker Carlson sounds like David Duke half the time. So, it's nice that this focus was already on Zionist power and their response to things like, even the Charlie Kirk assassination, things like an obvious Israeli, some kind of connection. Now with this going on, it's so obvious. So you have pathetic entertainers, Jewish entertainers like Jon Stewart, who, I don't know if you saw his reaction, and Bill Maher. It's people don't laugh anymore. It's so obvious that they're in the tank tribally for this. And they can't be. And again, what people have talked about, Shapiro and Mark Levin and all these people, they don't have an allegiance to the United States. Their allegiance is to Israel. So they really ought to go there. The members of the Congress that wear the IDF uniforms and everything. So it's already primed for this. And the fact that I didn't expect Iran to be putting up this much of a fight. Now, if you believe some reports, they've destroyed our military bases. Doug McGregor and people like that. I don't know if that's true or not, because of course, according to us, everything's going swimmingly. But it looks like Iran is doing a really good job making us, obliterate a lot of our incredibly expensive armaments and really doing damage to Israel. And I don't want to root against my own country, but I can't say we don't deserve that, because this is all our fault. So yeah, I don't see how.
Well, I don't think you're wrong, Don. I mean, wasn't it Jefferson that said every once in a while that the tree of liberty must be watered with the blood of time? I mean, it's amazing that it hasn't happened sooner. I mean, as far as the founding fathers and their ideas go, the foundational ideas, I mean, they've been under attack almost right from the start of the Republic. As soon as Hamilton got his hands in there, and it's gone downhill ever since. With every war, it just get worse and worse, less and less liberty every time. What do you think, Salim?
Well, pulling away from the United States and looking at it in a global sense, which I've been talking to for quite some time with my students, I see this as the end of the Eurocentric age. In fact, the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991, 92 was almost, paradoxically, at the end of the 500 years that began with the age of Columbus and the discovery of America, 1992, just came together. And the
Never mind. I was just pointing at a book. Sorry, Salim. Didn't mean to distract you. But yeah,
I didn't understand with what you were signaling to me. I couldn't read your sign language,
Yeah.
Anyhow, I mean, I won't take too much time. From the big picture point of view, the end of the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Soviet Union, in so many ways. Now we are looking at it retrospectively, was also, in a sense, the end of ideology, not the Fukuyama thesis, but, and ironically, the end of ideology was a resurrection of the theological importance in politics. It is not simply Christian Zionism. If you look back again retrospectively, I would say the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union, that the Cold War began in that very significant year, 1979. It began with the revolution in Iran, the Islamic Republic, that came together.
Bringing it back to what this is all about. That was a big turning point.
Yeah, the year 1979. Now, if you look back upon it, we were all young at that time. I was in my 20s. I was in the graduate school, but the picture comes together. It was the revolution in Iran. It was an Islamic Republic revolution. In the age of modernity, here was a return of the theologians. The same thing happens in Poland. Solidarity, election of John Paul II as Pope, and the whole movement in Poland. It was also the year in which Sadat signed the peace treaty with Israel, at the end of 1979. 2 years later, he took a bullet for bringing about peace. 2 years later, he was killed. There were other instances in 1979. For instance, the Soviet Union last gap was the invasion of Afghanistan, which led to the entire movement, the Mujahideen, the Taliban, the fight against the Soviet Union, that indeed, without the Afghan militants, and they were joined by Mujahideen, that is freedom fighters from across the Muslim world, Arabs and Indonesians and so on and so forth. It was not simply the Afghan, and they defeated. Of course, the money came from the Saudis, the logistic came from the Pakistanis, and the overall politics came from the Americans and the technology. But the fighters were, again, theologically driven, and I'm coming back to the importance of that aspect of it. It was also in Americas. It was the beginning of the Sandinista revolution, the Contras, and so on and so forth, that spread into the 1980s.
And also at that time, there's a whole bunch of Catholic priests in Central America getting killed because they were fighting back against this.
Yeah, I mean, in El Salvador, I mean, the name is escaping me. Michael Jones will possibly immediately remember the name. The Archbishop of El Salvador, San Salvador, was murdered.
Bishop Romero.
Archbishop, yeah. So 79 was again, if you put it all together, was the beginning of indeed the 21st century. But nobody looked at it. It was, the neocons, the Christian Zionists, and all of that together was looking at the unipolar world where America will dominate, and the whole language that comes together. And now,
what do you think, Matt? I want to quickly go to Matt. He's been waiting patiently. What do you think's going? The theological implications of what's going on now. You can't get away from it right now. It's driving foreign policy for major countries. Is there theological interpretations of sacred texts? And this also, the Muslims also believe in this end times prophecy. There is also an end time prophecy for Muslims, for Jews, for Christians, and they're all these crazies are coalescing around this one thing to almost like make prophecy happen in real time. They're contributing to it, and maybe the leaders at the top think they got this under control, but I don't think their followers can be trusted. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, it's fun that you're beginning right in the deep end of the pool, eh? Yeah, and that video that you started with it's very real. I mean, it's I think a good reminder, of some of the ideological beliefs that are moving things in a certain direction. And it's difficult for a lot of analysts who have been accommodated or who have adapted to the sort of language that's acceptable in academia and polite society. We've all encountered this, right? Where there's this sort of like a tendency towards looking for logical explanations for why things happen in the political realm. And that can only take you so far, like even if we presume a game theory model of like what's animating the human mind and heart and decision making regarding like, self-interest, the ability in a Hobbesian world for the strong to impose their will onto the many in a great game of each against all. And that's true. That does animate a lot of the degrees of mechanisms, but there's something else above even that floating about, and it's not new. Definitely the Third Temple reconstruction cult is a cult, and it's got a lot of influence. It's been building and building under the surface out of people's perceptions for a while. I think it's sort of used the evangelical networks in America that it sort of like really started working on followers of Cyrus Schofield and John Nelson Darby and company that gained increasing amounts of influence during the Cold War over U.S. policymaking and somehow got a handle, these Christian Zionists, in policymaking more broadly. With Clean Break, you had the murder of Yitzhak Rabin, and that created a space for Netanyahu and Likudniks to come in. They immediately commissioned a grouping that was setting up to take the stage of control in the United States around Paul Wolfowitz and Richard Pearl and Richard Kagan and company, the Project for a New American Century crowd. And they immediately, like their first, I think the PNAC people, one of the first reports they published was for Netanyahu called the Clean Break Doctrine, right? The Clean Break, a strategy for securing the realm, which basically, 1997 was still calling for the takedown of all of these various governments, starting with Iraq, but Lebanon, Syria, Libya, leading up to the big trophy Iran was always on that hit list. That's a creepy little picture, collective, prayer for Trump. That's creepy. So that's, they laid out the recipe book to secure the realm for a greater Israel. And part of that seems to have or people who believe in this seem to really put a high priority on certain rituals that they believe they have to do, sort of killing red heifers at a certain day under a certain period of astronomical sort of.
And of course, the Iranian war was launched on Purim. Of course, they always manage.
Of course, that has, naturally, and somehow this idea that this temple, once it's reconstructed, is going to be sort of like an invocation. It's got a very occult sort of overtone, and not that different from the sort of thing that we had seen as a pattern in the minds of those who had launched the first Crusades. Exactly. Who had an idea of recovering Julian the Apostate's mission of promising to build the temple back in the 4th century. And a lot of these Templars who were, created as a Gnostic mystery cult inside of coming out of some of the mercenaries of the Normans, the Northmen, Vikings that were used as battering rams, there was an initiatory sort of structure.
Well, exactly, Matt. It's the United States of America, the new Normans, and they're being used by these people. Anyway, I want to quickly play this, and then I want Michael to talk about this and I do have something by Carrie. You said something about Carrie Jean Proler or whatever. I have something of hers queued up already, but this was inside. There are approximately 53, and I want Mr. Jones to comment on this. There are approximately 53 million to 72 million Catholics in the United States, representing about 20% of the population. The Catholic Church is the largest single religious body in the country, but not one priest was invited to this because Catholic clergy are calling this an unjust war and Catholics should not be fighting in it. So 20% of the population, these Catholics, are not being read into the room. But let's just watch this. This is only about 48 seconds, but it's so creepy.
We are honored to come before your presence today lifting up the arms of our president. We pray for your continued blessing and favor to rest upon him. We pray for wisdom from heaven to flood his heart, his mind, and Lord, you will guide him in these challenging times that we're facing.
By the way, that woman to his right,
pray for your
Paula White,
grace
I have
and
something
your
of hers
protection
teed up. You'll love her.
I pray for your grace and protection over our troops and all of our men and women serving in our armed forces. And Father, we just pray you'll continue to give our president the strength that he needs to lead our great nation as we come back to one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We pray your heavenly blessing upon him in Jesus' name.
Okay, that's one thing I wanted to play, and then I want to quickly go to this because I did mention this woman, Paula White, before we have Michael can talk about this. But this is that woman. Let's just listen to her for a while. Hold on a sec here. I got to tee it up properly.
Wherever I go, God rules.
Oh, sorry.
When I walk on White House grounds, God walks on White House grounds. I had every right and authority to declare the White House as holy ground because I was standing there, and where I stand is holy.
President Trump would be saying no to God. And I won't do that.
We are in a spiritual war right now. Let every demonic network that has aligned itself against the purpose, against the calling of President Trump, let it be broken. Let it be torn down in the name of Jesus.
You want me to tell you what my thoughts are? The thoughts of the King of Kings, the thoughts of the Lord of Lords. I'm downloading heaven.
You guys notice she's always wearing red? Kind of like a scarlet woman.
She's speaking in tongues right now. There she is. Donald Trump just loves her. Look at that. Because she's blonde, I'm guessing, right? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, so I said one of the things that's going to disappear at the end of the Third Republic is Protestantism. And this is going to cause an identity crisis in America because an American was an Anglo-Protestant and they tolerated other groups. So the three ethnic groups in America, according to the triple melting pot, Protestant, Catholic, Jew. If the Protestants disappear, there's going to be a conflict between the Catholics and the Jews. And that's already started. So the response to this thing, that little prayer meeting in the Oval Office, was Pope Leo saying that war is not holy. He said it before, but they resurrected it today. They posted it again today to set a clear demarcation point between the Catholics and the Protestants.
Can I quickly pray it, Michael? Because you brought
Yeah,
it
go
up.
ahead. Yeah.
Continuare a tradire i desideri di pace dei popoli con le false propagande del riarmo, nella vana illusione che la supremazia risolve i problemi anziché alimentare odio e vendetta? La gente è sempre meno ignara della quantità di soldi che vanno nelle tasche dei mercanti di morte e con le quali si potrebbero costruire ospedali e scuole. Invece si distruggono quelli che sono già costruiti.
So that's pretty straight out right in your face.
Right. And in Italian, too. I love it when he speaks Italian.
And he's an American. He does that well.
And a man with no accent. He speaks all these languages without an accent. Anyway, so what we're seeing here is the collapse of this civic religion in America. Nobody believes it anymore. And we are in kind of theological territory. I agree that 79 was a crucial year. 79 was the year where you had twin uprisings against materialism, the twin uprising against American materialism in Iran, the uprising against communist materialism in Poland, and now we're coming to some type of climax. Now, I'd like to go biblical myself here, okay?
Here we go. That's what we're waiting for.
Okay. I want to talk about the role that Persia has played in salvation history.
I can't wait. Salim's going to want to respond to this. This is going to be good. Okay.
Persia, when Israel went bad and turned away from God, God allowed them to be punished, and they went into the Babylonian exile, which was under the Persian hegemony at that point. And That God had a predetermined time frame for that. It was 70 years. And at that point, the Persian emperor woke up one day and he said, the punishment's over. It's time to go back and rebuild the temple. Persia had a role to play in salvation history there. And I'm saying it has a role now. I'm saying the first three non-Hebrews to worship the infant Jesus Christ were Persians. They were the wise men. And they followed a star, and the star led them to Jesus Christ. Okay? I think that Islam is punishment. Islam, I agree with Luther for once, that Islam is die Peitsche Gottes. Islam is the scourge of God. And I think that Persia is playing that role again. That it is clearly punishing Israel right now. Those rockets are getting through. They are pulverizing Tel Aviv in a sense that giving the sense that there's some type of justice there. After all, what the Israelis did to Gaza, the Iranians are now doing to Tel Aviv. And I'm saying this regime is so corrupt. I'm talking about the American satanic regime that those evangelicals were celebrating. It's so corrupt that we cannot correct it. The entire Congress is being paid off, bribed by IPAC. There is no possibility of saving this internally. And when that happens, God brings the Persians in. And I think this is what is happening now.
And I think also, I want to quickly mention, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones, I want to quickly mention that people who are science fiction fans and read this the Dune series by Mr. Frank Herbert, the Fremen are the Persians. Remember, who wins in that? The Empire? Does the Empire win? No. The Fremen from the desert rise up. I mean, I think this is what we're talking about. Nobody expects these guys to win. Aren't they more like a bunch of barbarians? But guess what? Right?
These are not barbarians. This is a 2,500-year-old culture, and one of the oldest cultures in the world.
Fremen are more like the Bedouin.
But what I'm saying is, it's how they're viewed by the American public in large because of the propaganda, right?
Yeah,
so I'm agreeing with you, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, so I think the moment of our deliverance is at hand. That's the way I'm feeling this now. The moment of our deliverance is at hand, and God has said, we gave these Israelis, we gave them 80 years. I'm the same age as Israel. We gave them 80 years. Nothing lasts longer than 80 years. You failed miserably. You are being taken. You're going to be thrown into the rubbish heap of history, and the Iranians are going to be the vehicle of God's punishment and vindication.
Wow, Salim, what do you think? That's a big one.
Well, it is a big one, and the question is, which way do I take the Michael Jones observation? By the way, I agree completely with Michael on what he has just now expressed. Most people don't understand in the West that Shia Islam is the bleeding heart of Islam, the bleeding heart of Muslims. You see, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei was not in any bunker, had not escaped. That was the narrative that was being spun, that he's being, hiding, he's gone away to Russia, he's gone so on and so places, But no, he was in his house, with his family, the very house where he would meet the public. No palace, no special place, and everybody knew where he was. So there was no great Mossad intelligence operation going on or CIA operation going on to find out and dig out where Ayatollah Khamenei is. And he stood there and he took the hit. He was prepared for his death. That is, he was prepared for martyrdom. The Shia Islam is very emphatic about martyrdom because the history begins with martyrdom. The majority of Muslims live in a state of a suppressed understanding of their own history and of their own faith tradition. Almost 80% of Muslims are Sunni Muslim. I come from the same tradition, Sunni Islam. And about 20% are Shia Muslim, Shia Islam. The history of Islam, or of Muslims rather, of Muslim history 1500 years ago, begins with, soon after the death of the Prophet, with internal fight over the successors. And the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, Ali, was martyred by the Sunni Muslims, that is Arabs, and that began the story. His son then, both his son, Hassan and Hussein. Hussein is the most tragic story. He was martyred. He stood his ground with his family, and he was killed with all his family, men and women and children. And that is the history by which the blood, I mean, you talked about Jefferson, the blood of Ali and Hassan and Hussein and all their family is what is recalled. And that's what exactly Ali Khamenei stood for. And instead of dividing up the Iranians, it brought them together. I would also say that for the Arabs, it's not only the Jews, it's the Arabs who have betrayed everything about their heritage. And they've done it because of that original fight. I've called it in my own way. It was a war crime with which the Muslim history begins. And so we come to the 1500 years. I mean, by the way, the Islamic Revolution, 1979, was also the year beginning of the 15th century in the Islamic calendar. So we are halfway down in the Islamic calendar of the 15th century. And it is part of the Muslim theology, Islamic theology, that what the Prophet has said, that every 100 years there will come a mujtahid. Mujtahid, it means a renewer, a revivalist, as Islam's and that is the Muslim history decay over time. A mujtahid will come to renew and revive the history, to bring back the Muslim to their fundamental. And that is what the role of Ayatollah Khomeini was, So 1979, again, was a very significant year, year one of the 15th century. And the Arabs have repudiated that. The Arabs have not stood with the Palestinians, in the way that Khomeini did. He declared every Friday, or the last Friday of the month of Ramadan. We are in the month of Ramadan right now, which is the holiest month in the Islamic calendar because it is the month when the Quran was revealed. He declared that the last Friday in the month of Ramadan will be the Al-Quds Day, that is the Jerusalem Day. He invited Yasser Arafat to come to Tehran and embraced him. And the last speech that the foreign minister of Iran gave in Doha, Qatar, just a few days before the bombing started in the last week of February, he began by stating that the fundamental problem in the region, in the Gulf, is the betrayal of the Palestinian people. And we will not betray them. It all begins with the question of the Palestinian people and their right to self-determination and the right to freedom. So, it all coalesces for the people of Iran, for the Shia Muslims across the Muslim world, and now the Sunnis are joining the Shia. That splinter, that schism is being, in a sense, repaired. The whole ummah, that is the whole Muslim community, is coming together behind the issue for which Iran has held the beacon and the principle since the 1979 revolution.
That's incredible. And Matthew, I want your intake on this from the perspective. Now, I want to quickly mention all this stuff. Yes, theology has a hand in this, but a lot of this has to do with what your specialty is, secret societies, and how they got involved in all this, and how they're kind of orchestrating things, right? And this is the people that kind of control foreign policy in the West, and especially the arms manufacturers. Remember, Trump just came out today and said our great arms manufacturing sector is going to have our back, and we're going to pump up more weapons than anybody. And the head of Raytheon said, "Yeah, we're right behind you, President Trump," as he's trying to hold on to his bulging wallet. Matthew, what do you think? The secret society angle, please.
Sure. Yeah. And just to add one thing too, the merger between the AI overhaul of governance and military systems should not be ignored as well. That's currently moving forward. And I think there was an agreement this week to remove any kind of moral guardrails.
Right. So is AI the Antichrist? Artificial intelligence?
Peter Thiel would say yes, but Peter Thiel's also a Straussian and believes in a secret doctrine for the inner elite too. So who knows, right? But that being said, I think that on the mystery cult, secret society thing, I've been reading these books lately. I'm preparing for the Revenge of the Mystery Cults, Volume 4. So I've been reading these books on eschatology, like this one here, Visions of the End, Apocalyptic Traditions in the Middle Ages. Basically, it's a whole compilation of different eschatologists from the 3rd century onward to the Middle Ages, and this other one by Norman Cohn on the Pursuit of the Millennium. And the thing that I'm noticing a lot here is that going back to the transition of the Roman kingdom into the Republic, the Roman Republic into the Empire, even the unleashing of a lot of the big disastrous policies before the Crusades, and especially the Crusades. When I read, one thing they cite a lot is that people like Bernard de Clairvaux, who founded or created the charter for the Templars, was also a follower of something called the Sibylline Oracles. I don't know if that's something you guys have looked at, the Sibylline books or the Sibylline Oracles. It's a big one. It goes. I mean,
I can't read everything, Matt. That's why I have you on the show.
Sure. I was sure if you bumped up against it, but yeah, it's like, what are these constant things? It's pretty much the Sibyllines, the Sibyls, were this network of about 10, but there's actually 11 oracles that controlled much of the world. The Tiburtine Sibyl. There's a Sibyl of a Delphi. The Delphic Oracle to the Temple of Apollo. You got them in the Etruscan Sibyl. You got them. There's 10 outlined by Virgil in the Aeneid, and they basically were a control grid, it seems, for intelligence, banking, cult creation, synthetic religious engineering. That was a big part of the ancient world, and it was the Delphic oracles transcriptions, which were pretty much just a drugged up woman whose utterings were transcribed by priests who would interpret the tea leaves and the sounds and tell kings and generals what to do. But they basically compiled some of the stuff, which were always very, very poetic imagery, very easy to interpret in a million ways, and sold it to Tarquin, the last king of Rome, upon which he made certain decisions to do certain things that resulted in him getting killed and Rome becoming a republic. Brutus played a big role in this, the great grandfather of the famous Brutus, who helped kill Julius Caesar. But along the way, these things seem to have this character of being millennial in nature, so they foresee end times prophecies. At first, before the Christian era had emerged, they were obviously catering to a pagan language. They were modified after Christianity started becoming more of the dominant thing, and so you had like Stilicho get rid of the Sibylline books, but the oracles were remodified, the books were remodified, and were used by theologians, usually of the Pelagian and Donatist flavor. The enemies of Saint.
What you're trying to say is that the Book of Revelations came from the oracle at Delphi.
Well, I don't know if it came from them, but there wasn't a consensus early on at like Nicaea or even afterwards that this should be necessarily included as the last book in the New Testament. That was a big fight that went on for a couple of centuries still to put that in there. And the whole, like, it seems like the idea that John the Apostle was necessarily the author, that's kind of sitting on a bit of flimsy ground as far as like evidence is concerned. When I look at some of the battles that were going on in the 4th and 5th century, it doesn't seem like that was a foregone conclusion. But yeah, I mean, there was an effort to try to, I think, redefine Christianity around something that would absolve us or get rid of human free will and agency, so that people would, if they believe that God demands or dispenses his will in these millennial dispensations, that we would then be more weaponizable or useful at bringing about, manifesting here on earth through our own actions.
So exactly when they say onward Christian soldiers, they always leave out the part as to war, not going to war. Onward Christian soldiers, bringing the idea of Jesus and his teachings of peace, is quickly erased, and the as to war gets reinterpreted as you are going to war. And we saw that in that little video. And Don, from being a Catholic all your life, and I know you've opined on this before, this whole idea of Christianity being involved in revenge, because I've heard Jewish people who are Zionists online, they always fall back on Ezra Levant and Mark Grobert. They fall back to we believe in Old Testament justice. Right, Old Testament justice, revenge, vengeance, and all that. But I thought vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. It is not for men, right? And the Catholic teachings always, when I look back on it, really hit that mark better than these current Protestant Zionist type weirdos that are like they really believe in bringing about this Armageddon through violence, and isn't that against everything that you believed?
I mean, the whole time. It took me a long time to realize the huge differences between not general Protestants. You know, I grew up believing that the difference between Protestants and Catholics, they broke away from the church because they were objected to popery, as they called it, you know, and the popes and the kind of hierarchy of the church, of the cardinals, the veneration of Mary, the saints, and all that. I think confession. You know, you don't need a middleman. Those are my impressions for a long time. And even I remember when so-called Jesus freaks, which that's what we called them in the 70s.
I'm one of those, by the way. I'm a Jesus freak.
I don't remember the emphasis on Israel or Zionism. I don't remember Zionism being talked about back then. It was just they were really devoted to Jesus. And I was writing songs back then, and I knew people that suddenly discovered Jesus, and they threw away all their songs and started writing nothing but Christian songs. But it was nothing. It wasn't written to say they did have a huge interest in the Book of Revelation, and they already were looking to the end times, and they thought the end times was then coming in the 80s, and there was a lot of that in the sense of the Reagan administration. But what we're seeing now is this, and that was very telling. That very spooky photo, you know, of the prayers and the kind of laying hands on Trump, and he's just looking that way. There were no Catholic involvement in all. I don't think this is a Catholic-approved war. Obviously, the Pope says that this is not only an evangelical crusade at the behest of Israel, and really the only reason anyone supports this in the United States is because of Christian Zionists, evangelical Christianity, and that's why. And getting into arguments with them on people that used to support me, and I've lost some of them now because they can't deal with me criticizing Israel. They can't deal with me making fun of the concept of God's chosen people. They don't like that. I lost a dear friend of this because I said, you know, when you call yourself chosen, you're going to get some blowback. And they didn't like that. No, these people are chosen. So it's a foreign concept to me. And the idea that we're fighting a war now, and we've completely been usurped by Zionism and this evangelical Christianity. And you see it in that picture with the gold trim behind Trump and laying hands on him. No Catholic approval of this at all, and it's going to, maybe something good will come out of it. Then I hope, you know, maybe this will be the fall of Israel. I mean, I don't want to see people get killed, but it's good that for the first time again, and for a long time, people, Tucker Carlson, you know, somebody like that, when he was talking to Mike Huckabee, he was questioning Israel's, why is Israel where they're at? You couldn't do that for a long time. You're questioning Israel's right to exist. And Tucker Carlson said, you know, do they have a right to exist there? And he said, does any other nation have a right to exist? Does Ireland have a right to exist? Why is it just Israel? And we're seeing now Israel's the only one that has a right to defend itself, because basically what Trump was saying in his completely deranged Truth Social thing, if you saw today, which really has to be read. I don't know if you have it or not, RB, but it has to be read to be believed. But he basically accused the Iranians of some kind of treachery in fighting back when they were attacked. I mean, the idea is that why don't they have a right to defend themselves? This is madness. And again, we know nothing proves Zionist influence in the United States more than this, but I don't see how anything can come out of this. I don't see how the United States can win at all in this. And it could, we're already seeing gas prices in the gas stations near me. It's gone up 60 cents since this started. It's only going to keep going up. And, they keep Hormuz shut down. Who knows? And of course, all supplies, everything that goes to grocery stores are fine truckers like RB Ham that are delivering. So the cost of gasoline goes up. It's going to be passed on to the consumer. This has the potential to collapse the American economy. You've already seen the stock market crashing. So nothing but bad times ahead, I don't think, unless somehow people can rein this in. But you don't have a whole lot of opposition on the Democratic side because they're full of the Zionists over there as well. They want this. The only reason they would criticize it all is because they want to see Trump fail, but they also want to see Israel come out ahead. So it's I'm sure they're wishing for different things here.
I'm going to read this, Donald, and then we'll flip it over to E. Michael Jones. So this is Donald Trump's latest social, and this is a little bit unhinged. Remember, people, this is supposed to be the president of the United States. Aren't you supposed to be a dignified statesman or something like that? Let's listen to this. From Donald J. Trump. Iran, which is being beat to hell, has apologized and surrendered to its Middle East neighbors. I didn't hear that. And promised that it will not shoot at them anymore. This promise was only made because of the relentless U.S. and Israeli attack. They were looking to take over and rule the Middle East. It is the first time that Iran has ever lost in thousands of years to surrounding Middle Eastern countries. They have said, "Thank you, President Trump." And I have said, "You're welcome." Iran is no longer the bully of the Middle East. They are instead the loser of the Middle East and will be for many decades until they surrender or, more likely, completely collapse. Today, Iran will be hit very hard under serious consideration for complete destruction and certain death because of Iran's bad behavior. Our areas and groups of people that were not considered for targeting up until this moment of time. So now he's basically saying, we're going to commit war crimes. You watch us. And thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. All right, Michael, I'm throwing that over to you. A commentary on that.
I in trying to figure out this bizarre behavior, I speculated that he may have tertiary syphilis, which is always one of the symptoms of tertiary syphilis is delusions of grandeur and disconnection from reality. But again, we're seeing desperation here. This crazy talk. Emmanuel Todt, the French writer, wrote a book called La Défaite de l'Occident, in which he says the American empire is disappearing. Now, this is before the war, about a year ago. And he said the American empire is collapsing because Protestantism is the hidden grammar of the American empire, and Protestantism is evaporating. I think that's true. And then he goes and says, well, what's Protestantism? And then he goes, what's the hidden grammar of Protestantism? And he starts talking about Max Weber. And at that point, everybody's eyes glaze over because nobody needs to talk about Max Weber. You're missing the point. You can only understand the mind of the people who speak English if you read poetry, because they don't do philosophy. They can't do philosophy. But they do great poetry. And the poem I'm talking about is Milton's Paradise Lost. You cannot underestimate, you have to understand Milton's Paradise Lost, particularly the beginning of it where Satan gives his speech. So the Satan speech is the hidden grammar of American identity. There's nothing even comes close. This is John Milton, the Puritan revolutionary who was signed on the murder of the king. These people come to America. The revolution has failed. They come to America, and suddenly they have the ability to act upon this principle that Milton articulated. Every single person who signed the Declaration of Independence in 1776 was reading Paradise Lost. John Adams, Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson were reading it directly, reading the poem, commenting it on their literature. Everyone else was reading it indirectly through the most famous pamphlet in American history, which was called Common Sense, written by Tom Paine, which is full of quotes from Satan's speech in Paradise Lost. This is the hidden grammar of American identity. And what happened is it evolved over a period of time from theoretical Satanism, intellectual Satanism, into practical Satanism. So along the way, you have someone like. So what is this? What does Satan say? The mind is its own place. It's better to reign in hell than to serve in heaven. Ralph Waldo Emerson in Self-Reliance says, "Nothing matters but the integrity of your own mind." Nothing matters but the integrity of your own mind. And someone says, well, what if that's from below? Then I am of the devil's party. If that's from the devil, I am of the devil's party. But he stayed married to the same woman. He was faithful husband to his woman. And he disagreed with Carlyle and Dickens when they said sexual morality was going down the drain. He said, every American male goes to his marriage bed as a virgin. What you saw over this period of time is the working out of this hidden identity, the collapse of sexual morality that took place after the Second World War, beginning of the Third Republic, and culminating in a figure like Donald Trump. So Donald Trump is asked by the New York Times, do you believe in international law? And he says, no. And they say, well, what do you follow? And he says, my mind.
His own morality.
My morality, my mind. We're sailing into the uncharted waters of the Fourth Republic, and all this guy has on is his mind. At the same time, Steve Bannon's interviewing Jeffrey Epstein. And he says to him, are you the devil? And Epstein says, no. And then Bannon starts quoting Satan's speech from Paradise Lost. What we're seeing is the evolution, the distillation of American identity back to the satanic essence out of which it began. And that's where we stand right now with this guy, Captain Ahab, sailing the ship of state into uncharted waters.
I want to quickly go to Salim, because I think what the message here is, we're going to be bombing Iran back in the Stone Age so their women can open OnlyFans accounts. What do you think, Salim?
Well, I mean, there might be. I mean, there's a great fear that Israel might use nuke. There's reports out that Israel has notified people of Qom, which is the seminary town in Iran, and which is where Ayatollah Khomeini taught for many years, where Ali Khamenei lived and taught for many years. I visited that city in early 1990s. This is like, maybe the town which has Oxford and Cambridge in England, so all the seminarians and all the students who are there, they come. But it's also a town with a population of 1.2 million, and it is about 27 kilometers from Fordow, which is one of the nuclear sites. And so the directive have gone out that the people should vacate, but Iran has shut down the internet, so the people are not going to hear that. So I don't know what this is all about. But coming back to, I mean, if they use a nuclear weapon, I mean, it'll be a totally different ball game on. I mean, there will be no surrender, no end. It will be the end of Israel in the long term or in the medium term. But I want to get back to where Paradise Lost and John Milton come, because we're talking about theology and politics, and this administration has been taken over by the Christian Zionists. And what we need to say, and let me say this, the Paradise Lost was written in the time and in the context of the Puritan Revolution in the 17th century, 1648, 49, when Charles I was put to death by Cromwell and his forces. But here is the other side of it, Edward I had expelled the Jews from England in 1290. And it was Cromwell and his people, the Puritans, who brought the Jews back into England.
Boom. A lot of people forget that.
So can I interrupt here?
Yes, please.
Crowds, they went Manasseh ben Israel was sent to England, to persuade the Puritans to let the Jews in.
That's right.
At the crucial moment, Cromwell got a letter from one of the Puritans living in Germany in which he said, you have no idea what Jews are like. You have to come to Germany. These are not the people of the Old Testament. And Cromwell did not let them in. Charles II let them in. It was the Restoration that let them in.
Right.
All right, thank you for that clarification.
Right. I mean, if I went into the granular, I would exhaust the time that RB has given me. But it is after Cromwell's death, his son refuses to become the Lord Protector, and then there is the long parliament and the debates going on, and then comes the story of James, who is then chased away, defeated, and Charles II comes in, and then when Charles II dies, the coming of Manasseh ben Israel and opening that door and bringing back the Jews in, what is happening? It is money. It is money pouring in. And if you want to connect the dots over here, I mean, to me, looking back at all of this, is Jean Calvin, who is, in my books, the criminal which has become the Protestant leader. This is the guy with his theology that today has evolved into Prosperity Bible, right? I mean, it was Max Weber who wrote almost the definitive book about this with Protestant ethic and the spirit of capitalism. So money comes in. I mean, the worship of mammon comes in to the church, and that is what Protestantism is: money. And that's the long story. England becomes the seeding ground of what eventually comes out in the 19th century with Christian Zionism. And so what are the Protestants? They are crypto-Jews. Why don't we say that clearly and openly? They
Absolutely.
are Jews.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. They're crypto-Jews. They're Jews who eat pork.
Yeah. I mean, just to remind the audience of RB, and of course, I don't have to address this to Professor Jones. I respect him greatly with his knowledge about this history. I am an outsider coming in. But Ignatius, the third bishop of Antioch, third bishop after Peter, when he was being taken to Rome for his martyrdom to be fed to the lions, he wrote a series of letters, the epistles of Ignatius. And in his epistle to the Magnesians, he for the first time used the word Christianity to define the faith of Jesus. And he says, in these memorable sentences, if you permit me, I'll read it to you. There's nothing so more clear. And this is the first century, only about 60 years after the crucifixion. To profess, this is Ignatius, he says, to profess Jesus Christ while continuing to follow Jewish customs is an absurdity. The Christian faith does not look to Judaism, but Judaism looks to Christianity, in which every other race and tongue that confesses a belief in God has now been comprehended. The complete vileness of the Protestant faith is precisely being addressed by Ignatius 15 centuries before John Calvin, and there is no doubt about it. And then there's the other man, I'm going back to the first century AD. Of Jesus's, after him. Marcion says it very clearly. Later on, of course, he's called a heretic, and he is, everything is done to erase him out. But he says clearly, the Christian God is not the God of the Jews, of Yahweh. He's not Yahweh. That's the vengeful, bloodthirsty, God. And God the Father, Jesus is God, is the God of mercy, God of love, and universality. So there is a clarity of understanding, in my view, among the founders. That's the debate. But then the Jews corrupt the whole system. There is no monotheism in what is rabbinical Judaism. that has been destroyed after the destruction of the temple. Before the destruction of the temple, there was a biblical Judaism. But after the destruction of the temple, it is rabbinical Judaism, and all the complexity there is there about the Shekinah, about the sexuality, the gods coming together, and so on and so forth. This is the Bronze Age God of the tribe that goes under the name, quote and unquote, that, it is the one same God, the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, the God of Jesus, and so on. And of course, the God of Islam. Finally, I want to say this, and let me say this. I'm the outsider, so let me say this. I would not say this except in the context that we are living in now. I never said it. I never wrote it down. But now I have to say it. Christian Zionism, Crypto-Jews, beginning with Jean Calvin, is the theology of racism, period. This is racism in its completely open, naked form that has taken Jesus and made him a blue-eyed, blonde-haired, Nordic. It was the Dutch Reformed Church in South Africa that was protecting and promoting apartheid. And these are the people now who will not recognize the Palestinian as Christian. They talk about Genesis 3 and Genesis 15 and all of that. Abraham, gave the land, but they don't read Genesis 16 to 21, where Abraham and Hajar's story is told, where God intervenes with Hajar, saves her. Hajar is the mother of Ishmael, as you know. He is the oldest son of Abraham. So where is the chosen people? Is God also, in this definition, a racist? He excludes the progenies of Abraham and has a choice of one. And then you go into the story of, Isaac and Jacob and so on and so forth. It is deception. It's cheating, Jacob stealing the promises from Isaac for his brother Esau, And this is the story down the street. Cunningness, deception, lies, idolatry, and of course, money. And then
wow, that's a tour de force, Salim. I want Michael's response to that, but I haven't heard from Don and Matt about this idea of and I think Matt agrees that through the Kabbalistic traditions and all that stuff, these secret societies that have promoted exactly what Salim and Michael Jones are talking about, how you get inside a culture and destroy its moral founding through these secret societies that turn what are supposed to be these upstanding religions against each other and against themselves, in fact, and brings in all this immoral stuff. Like I was saying, when you go to see who owns OnlyFans, it's a Jewish rabbi. So
if you just give me.
Okay, so sorry, Salim.
Just 10 seconds, I will drop the name.
Okay.
Study Sabbathean Frankis and see devil worshippers.
Oh, Matthew has studied them, and please go on about that.
Me?
Yes,
well, I try to approach this sort of thing from the standpoint of as you pointed out earlier on, how Satanists are really good at concocting synthetic cults that appear to be one thing, but create a space for them to infiltrate anything and corrupt and destroy it from within. So, there's a lot of Muslims that are not Muslims, Jews that are not Jews, Christians that are not Christians, Hindus that are not Hindus, floating around in there with an inner esoteric initiatory belief structure that are more than happy to sacrifice most, if not all, of the adherents to those particular faiths that they have infiltrated. And it seems from a top-down perspective that they've done a pretty good job of coordinating and colluding over many centuries, if not millennia together, according to a very different kind of secret gospel or a secret belief in a very evil concept of God that made us in this evil image. And, sacred sin, the type of logical moral backflips and contortions that has to be done, whether it's in Gnosticism or in any of the Gnostic expressions within the Batinia, the Batinia secret teaching sects in Islam that the Hashashins, the assassins, emerged out of. There's always this way of getting the mind to presume certain axioms about the nature of evil as a force that balances out light and goodness, as you know. So you have to have this Manichaean kind of presumption that Augustine did great battle with in a fantastic way and demolished it wonderfully in his dialogues on the free choice of the will and his battles against the Manichaeans. I mean, there's wonderful polemics, as well as against the Pelagians, the Donatists, and other splinter groups that were being set up, you know, by these same religious engineers in those days. That later it took another 1,000 years for them to effectively, you know, go back to the drawing board and figure out how to basically rehash Pelagianism and Donatism and all, and Manichaeism infusions in the form of the splintering up around even the Huttites, and later on Luther and Calvin and company. But there's a way, right? There's a rhythm, there's a technique, there's a formula to this whole thing that I find fascinating. I find it kind of like bewildering in other ways too. But the fact that you have like Satanists acting like they're Muslims through the assassin order, the followers of Hassani Sabah, they're working for centuries with the Templars. They're working and they're openly getting caught by Saladin, who's avoiding assassinations by these assassins. And he's actually getting them to admit that actually Richard the Lionheart had hired them to go and assassinate one of Richard's enemies. I forget which king of Jerusalem, which they do, as well as Saladin. But they're working to kill Muslims. They're working to kill Christians. Christians are killing Christians. But the point is, they're not really that. It's an initiatory mystery cult that wants to keep a ritual alchemical bloodletting going on of intercivilizational war, from the Crusades that I don't think they ever really wanted the Crusades to stop. And I feel like we've kind of entered into a new millennialist sort of ritual alchemical transformation of humanity that involves purgative violence, or the belief in a sacred sin, a mass sacrifice of most of the humans living. I'm hoping that we can learn from the lessons of history to not let it happen again, and to wisen up on how these sorcerers and black magicians are playing us. But on the issue of Milton, I got to say one thing, Michael. I don't know if you're aware of this, but Milton wrote Paradise Regained, right? I don't know if you've read. Yeah, like where Jesus defeats Satan. And I think that a lot of people, they focus on the Paradise Lost and not Regained as
right.
You know,
because nobody. First of all,
American founding fathers and Satanists. I think that's lazy and dangerous and dishonest, Michael. I don't think you should do that, because you're not actually appreciating the type of battle that occurred against the Hellfire Club at that time by just simply saying they were reading Milton, so they're Luciferians, and they're Protestants, so they're Luciferians. That's not right. Why would you even think that?
I don't know. I think Michael was just painting a broad brush. I want his response to that.
Yeah.
Because it's true.
Okay.
No poem has had more influence on American history than Milton's Paradise Lost, and Satan's speech.
It's a beautiful poem. It was
a kind of saw in English literature that nobody ever read to the end of Paradise Lost. And in a sense, that's true. The Satan's speech goes to the heart of Protestantism, because the devil is saying, I will not serve. It's written by one of the most influential Protestants in history, and it was totally influential in the creation of America.
The essence of poetry is irony. You seem to be a literalist trying to read poetry, and you don't seem to see what a good poet is actually trying to awaken by using irony. And you're ignoring the punchline, which is Paradise Regained, where Jesus actually comes out victorious. You're just ignoring the punchline and saying in this joke with no punchline, there's bad things said. You're a literalist. You're missing.
Hold on a sec, Matt. I'm not Pierce. I'm not Pierce Morgan over here. I'm trying to. I don't want more conflict. What do you think, Michael?
I am a Miltonian fundamentalist, and I believe that the first thing you have to do is read the words that are actually on the page. This has been incredibly influential. Nobody read Paradise Regained. No one has ever. I don't even think Milton read Paradise Regained. But we have this. Everyone read Paradise Lost. Everyone. And I said, if not directly, then through Tom Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, which is full of This is what launched America into independence. And it was a satanic understanding of the mind.
Incorrect.
Well, we do have to understand that when I think most of the founding fathers are Freemasons, And George Washington, of course, was consecrated the cornerstone of the Capitol or something, and he's wearing his Freemason outfit and everything. And so there's something about that too. But Dawn, I want your I don't know if you read Paradise Lost. I had to in college, my first semester, and I can't even remember half of it. What do you think?
I read a lot of poetry. I've only read parts of that, so I didn't expect to be engaged in a debate over Paradise Lost. But yeah, I would, with all due respect, I have a hard time believing that although Benjamin Franklin was a member of the Hellfire Club, and that probably could be categorized as satanic. I mean, that's where people credit Aleister Crowley with coming up "Do What Thou Wilt," and that actually came from the Hellfire Club. So that was some pretty strange. I don't know that Thomas Jefferson's my hero, Patrick Henry, George Mason. These people, I don't know that you call them satanic. That would be really disillusioning to me if that was the case. So I don't know that they literally did that. But again, I don't know enough to comment about it. I just look at it. I'm looking at this a little bit differently. You guys are. Salim Mansur is the most incredible world historian I've ever met. Obviously, Michael Jones knows so much about everything, and certainly, it's what am I? I'm a community college dropout, but I'm a lifelong anti-war activist, and I just look at this on the surface of the war. Whatever reason why it's happening, I don't pretend to understand the differences between religions, and Catholicism looks at this a little differently. As I said, I don't understand a lot of Protestantism. I certainly don't understand the evangelical Christianity, which comes from the Schofield Bible. And it was only not that long ago I understood the importance of the Schofield Bible, which I think was the early 1900s that came out. Before that, you didn't talk about the rapture and this kind of stuff that Catholics don't learn about. And now it's quoted. And if you talk to one of these fundamentalist Christians, this is real to them, and they want you to believe it. And if you don't believe it, something's real, they'll try to convert you. So I don't try to convert anybody. So I object to that kind of thing. But when they take this to the extent of wanting war and they try to justify war, and I haven't followed this Pope that much, but I think it's great that he said there's no such thing as a holy war.
Let me get to the vector of Satanism.
Okay, here we go.
The vector of Satanism is sola scriptura. One of the three fundamental principles of Protestantism: sola scriptura, sola gratia, sola fide. Sola scriptura is what Cromwell did when you give an Englishman a Bible. Okay, to begin with, the Reformation was a looting operation just to steal church property. There was no theological justification for the Reformation in England. But you give an Englishman a Bible and you say, you're infallible now. You can interpret it however you want. He opens it. He'll go to the Old Testament. The first thing he'll start to do is read about Gideon and the conquest of Canaan. And then he'll say, I'm Gideon. And anybody I don't like is Amalek. Cromwell did it. Milton's friend. Milton was the secretary to Oliver Cromwell. Cromwell said Amalek are the Irish Catholics, and he went into the cathedral in Drogheda where they were hiding, thought they had sanctuary because it was a church, and slaughtered man, women, and child, because that's what you do. The guy who does it now, the same guy who does it now is Benjamin Netanyahu. This is, again, sola scriptura. I'm Gideon. The Palestinians are Amalek. We can slaughter them all. This is the vehicle of Satanism in American history and now in world history.
Wow, that's yeah. I mean, that's right. It makes sense now. I mean, that old when Netanyahu came on and talked about Amalek and all that, and I was kind of knew all this stuff, but when I started looking back into it through everything, it really scared the heck out of me. And that's a great. That's a great segue, and I'm going to go off camera here so my wife can hear. Hold on a second. Okay, here. That's a great. Now, this is Mr. Trump. Now, he's supposed to be a Christian, isn't he? But here he is, and I think that's Howard Lutnick to his right, who, despite what he got up to in Epstein Island, doesn't have to face any charges and is always right there to make sure. I almost think he's Trump's handler. But this is never forget when Trump prayed at the grave of Chabad Lubavitch's Rabbi Schneerson in Brooklyn. And Matt, I want to get you to, after I play this, I want you to tell everybody who this Rabbi Schneerson is. Chabad is a Jewish movement that believes all Gentiles should be enslaved. And I just want to play, this is real, folks. This is Trump, I think, showing his true allegiance. I don't know if he's a Christian or not. And that's where it cuts off. But later on, they show him actually reading from one of the books and bobbing his head in prayer as he reads it along. You can barely hear him. He's whispering while he does it, because I don't know if he knows Hebrew or not. He's just trying to fake it. But Matt, I'll quickly rewind that a little bit. Can you tell people what these columns mean, and who Rabbi Schneerson was, and this idea of the Mosaic, please? Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's a Kabbalistic sect that was created at the end of the 18th century that was very much founded on the idea of ushering in the end times, the Messiah, for the first time. Because, I mean, a lot of Jews in general don't think the Messiah came, so they've been trying to wait for him to come for the first time. And they're very much obsessed through certain ways of interpreting and reading the Kabbalah that were enumerated in this medieval plagiaristic piece of crap document called the Zohar that a bunch of Templars recovered from the Holy Land. It was transcribed in the 12th century. It basically gives you a bunch of insights in how to approach and read and study Kabbalah, and basically it seems to be a variety of techniques that are numerological in nature, very much based on astrology. It kind of infused with alchemy as well, with an inner core of teaching structures for initiated high priests and an outward form for uninitiated, non exoteric level members. Anyway, Schneerson he died of, I don't know, 20 years ago or something, but he was the guy who chastised Bibi Netanyahu for not moving fast enough to usher in the Messiah, the Messiah. And Bibi in 1991 you got videos online of him getting scolded like a little school child, promising to work harder to usher in the Messiah. And I do think that, it's very disturbing that Trump has had a Kabbalah teacher since the early 80s, from the school of Rabbi Berg, which is also a sort of like a Scientology version of popular Kabbalah that was set up in the early 70s, based on the idea of ushering in the Messiah. And it's a very messianic school of Kabbalah, very much focused on end times. His teachers from that school. And seeing him there doing his little homage to Rabbi Schneerson it's not a pleasant thing, not a pleasant sight.
And Don, quickly, I know you've seen a lot of these things online. People just kind of gloss by it. But didn't Donald Trump marry off his daughter Ivanka to Jared Kushner, who might as well be the Antichrist as far as I'm concerned, a Jewish dynasty of Kushners? He pardoned his father from criminal activities, a massive defrauder of people, and he marries him off, and they had and he owned that property, 666 Park Avenue. They throw this in everybody's face. I mean, my God, how these Christian Zionists can't figure this out. It's being thrown right in their face. What's going on?
Well, they have a special reverence for anyone that's Jewish. They never accept. I have a problem with anybody that is reveres people who rejected your Savior. To me, that I don't know why you have such an affinity for them. But Kushner is in the middle of all this. Apparently, he was right in the middle. He's come back. During the first term, he was pretty much Trump's handler. He did everything. And he's kind of laid low in the background up until now, but he seems to be front and center with this disastrous plan to bomb Iran into the Stone Age or whatever the hell they're doing. But he's
rebuild Gaza with resorts that the only Palestinians that will be allowed to live in Gaza will be served.
Great idea. What a great idea. And again, it's just, I call it the Trumpenstein Project, as you know. I think he's an actor. But ever since last year, when he suddenly went crazy and bombed Iran the first time and started calling the Epstein files a Democratic hoax, he's taken a really dark turn. I still think he's an actor, but Michael Jones may have a point that he might have some kind of mental disorder. He could have dementia or something at this point, because his Truth Social posts are just beyond surrealistic at this point. It's hard to believe that an adult wrote them, let alone the leader of the free world. So I don't know what's next. He's being handled, so I wouldn't, and I don't think Donald Trump could be dangerous on his own, because these people are completely handled. I don't think they could be dangerous if they wanted to be. But I don't begin to understand what's going on. All I know is that I don't make predictions, but whatever happens, it won't be good it never is. It hasn't been in my lifetime where anything happened that really benefited the vast majority of people. Nothing ever does. They make sure of that.
All right,
So,
I want to quickly switch to this because we're running out of time and I got some stuff to get to, and I got a big crescendo for the finish of this program. So this is a guy named Rabbi Yosef Mizrahi. He talks on why the evangelist Christians support Israel, and he makes fun of Jesus Christ, but never calling him Jesus Christ. He calls him J.C. Penney. I mean, this guy openly makes fun of Jesus. And Christian Zionists support this. I want to play this, and then there's a couple more after this, and then I'll have the panel comment.
Christians evangelists here in America, which almost all of them are Republicans, they're probably all going to vote for Trump, and they are very pro-Israel. They are the ones that, thanks to them, United States always been with Israel in the last few decades. If you take out Christianity out of the picture, what United States had to do with Israel? The only things they are helping us is because of religion reason. But what a lot of Jews do not know is that they're not doing it for us. They are doing it only for themselves. Make no mistake. They all believe that once we will go back to the Holy Land and J.C. Penney will show up to redeem the world, he will put us all to be burned in hell. That's what they believe, because we never accepted him, and we won't accept him. So why they want to help us to take over Israel, to win against the Arabs, make sure the Jews go? Why they pay all these organizations that sponsor Aliyah? A lot of the people who made Aliyah, it's Christian money. All their affair, it's all come from them. There's some Reform rabbis who have connection with them. They get hundreds of millions of dollars donation from them. Rabbis from Manhattan, from Texas. Why they are so generous? Why are they donating money to Israel? What do they care about Israel? The answer is because they believe the Messiah would come. They just have the wrong identity of the Messiah. That's it. They believe that it's actually JC. They never watch my debate with a Christian professor. They would watch it quickly. They would dump all the Christian symbols, you know where. It would be so obvious that it's all fake.
Okay, I'm not done yet. I'm going to stop this one and do the next one. This guy is awesome. He's just just something to behold, and he just can't stop himself. Hold on. I'm going to start this one, and let's listen to this next one from the same rabbi.
If you have an American goy or goya, if they are religious in Christianity, they are more wicked than someone that is secular. It's very interesting. Someone who follow a man-made book and admire JC and follow the New Testament claiming it's the book of God is actually a bigger criminal than someone that lives like an animal. Doesn't search for God, doesn't care about religion, just try to be a nice person and that's it. Why? Because he has one extra crime that this one doesn't have. They both do not follow the divine laws, the original divine laws, but the secular one did not claim that there is a fake prophet or son of God or this is a divine book. He never claimed such thing. The Christian claimed this false information. So he actually modified the truth of the holy truth of God. Same thing Islam. A regular Arab that is not religion in Islam is actually better than someone who follows Islam. Why? Because someone who follows Islam and a fake prophet is worse than someone who doesn't follow any religion. Someone who replaces God with a fake, or his real prophet with a fake prophet, or the real Torah with a fake book, obviously is a bigger criminal than someone who doesn't believe in anything.
So he's out there stating that the fundamentalist Christians that support Israel are all fake, and they're worse than secular Westerners, and that because the people who follow Islam and believe in it are worse than those Muslims who don't follow their religion. I mean, he's basically saying, well, yeah, we're the Jews, we're the chosen people, we're the best. And he's openly showing contempt for the very people that keep Israel alive. Michael, please, I would like your commentary on that.
Yeah, so one of the paradoxes that we're exposed to is that the Jews are upset. They're losing control of the narrative, and they're banning everyone that says something that they don't like. And to replace that, to fill the vacuum, they're promoting their own people. And no one does more to create anti-Semitism than people like this. Like, I can't think if Rabbi Shmuley didn't exist, Hitler would have to invent him. No one does more to make Jews look bad than Rabbi Shmuley or this rabbi or Mark Levine. And so Hegel calls it the cunning of reason. I think that's what's ruling the world right now. The Israelis have broken with Logos. They hate Logos. They hate everyone except themselves. And they're going to pursue a plan of action that is leading to their doom and bringing about the exact opposite of what they intend. So you put this guy on and you're going to create anti-Semitism. This is the paradox that's happening right now.
Salim, I think that's true. I mean, they're their own worst enemy, are they not?
In every sense of the word, in the public relations sense. Also, I think that what you're going to see is that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to bring about the end of Israel. I think that's God commissioned him to end Israel, bring about the end of Israel, and it's going to happen before 2028.
You think so, Salim?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the dates, I have no way to predict the days, but the substantive argument is, yeah, I mean, I'm in complete agreement with Michael. I mean, this issue, I mean, the rabbi that you played for us right now and for your audience, this has been going on for centuries, you know. And the other paradox here that I note is, whatever this guy has to say about the Christians, that is pursuing the Christian Zionists, that is pursuing the support of Jews and giving them money and so on and so forth, but they are all criminals. The paradox is, without the Christians, without the crypto-Jews, that is the Christian Zionists, there would be no Israel.
I know.
You know, these people are not the Israelites. They are not the Hebrew. You know, these are Khazarians. These are the ultimate fake. That's Bibi Netanyahu. You know, so
I mean, Mr. Milikowski.
These guys, again, have no sense of self-awareness. You know, and of course, there is no morality. As I said, you know, you have studied the Sabbatean and the Frankists, you know. The transgression is the path to salvation. So what else can we say about them? I'm right now reading this book. I don't know whether my friends on the panel have picked it up, but it's just recently been published in English. Eisenmenger's book, Judaism Unmasked, which was originally published in mid-17th century. Eisenmenger is from the 17th century. He was a professor of languages, Hebrew and Aramaic, in University of Heidelberg. And that book was then banned because of the Jews. The Frankfurt Jews got the leadership to ban that book, and the ban remained. You know, it was again republished in 1711 by the Prussian elector Frederick I. He gave the permission and the license to publish it, and then again the book was suppressed after Frederick I. And now finally the book has been brought out in English translation. Eisenmenger's book, Judaism Unmasked.
Quickly show it up to the camera, Salim. Make sure everybody. Okay. Do you have the book there?
I have it as an ebook, you know, so I don't have the thing. But people should take a note of it, because he digs deep into the literature, you know, both the Talmud, the Torah, the Midrash, and so on and so forth, to show the animus, the hostility, the hate of the rabbinical Judaism towards Christians, you know, because all of this was done before the coming of Muhammad or the coming of Islam. And so here it is. I mean, it is, the whole thing rests on the shoulders of the Christian Zionists. Their origin is in England. in the time of Cromwell, of the Puritan Revolution, and they're being seduced by the Jewish bankers in Amsterdam, who came in with William of Orange and Queen Anne into England. And that's the story that has run through the Pilgrim Brethren or the Plymouth Brethren,
And
the
and that,
elite.
and that's right, Salim. And we've been there, and you and Michael really talked about that. That's awesome. I want to encourage at some point, Matthew, to have Michael Jones on your Canadian Patriot Press podcast and hash this out a bit more about the Paradise Lost. That would be a great episode in itself. And Mr. Jones, I hope you accept, because that'd be great viewing, and I'd be watching. But I want to quickly go to this because we're going to wrap up the show pretty soon. We've been here a long time. Thank you. You're so generous with your time. And what I want to talk about to close this show off is something that is really worrying me, because we've heard talk about the Third Temple. I could play a video by Pete Hegseth talking about the Third Temple. And when the head of the Department of War is hoping for the rebuilding of the Third Temple, that should make everybody think. But I want to quickly highlight this. This is from today, the El Mayadeen in English. An Iranian intelligence source told Tasnim that Israelis have begun gradually evacuating settlers from areas surrounding the Al-Aqsa Mosque, suggesting the move is linked to a possible false flag attack. And I'm going to quickly read a little bit from the text here. Iran is warning of a possible Israeli false flag attack at the holy site in order to blame Iran, an intelligence source tells Tasnim. An informant official in Iran's Ministry of Intelligence has warned of what he described as a potential Israeli plan to target Al-Aqsa Mosque in occupied Al-Quds in an attempt to blame Iran and resistance movements. According to the Iranian news agency Tasnim, the official said the plan could involve a false flag operation using drones or missiles aimed at the mosque compound. The official claims such an attack could be carried out ahead of Al-Quds Day to incite Arab and Muslim public opinion against Iran and the resistance axis. So that's the plan. And I've been I called this years ago when I first started hearing about the red heifer stuff and everything, and it all seems to make sense. I'm going to stop sharing that. And we're going to go back to our favorite rabbi here. Hold on. As soon as I find it. Sorry, guys. One more. Got him. Here we are. Our favorite rabbi is talking about the Al-Aqsa Mosque and how they could maybe rebuild the Third Temple with some kind in some synagogue way.
It's all moved by Hashem's to this location, to that location. We don't know. Maybe one of the missiles will hit the mosque and clear the place for the third Bet HaMikdash. That could also be a miracle. If it was up to me, the last time when they shot hundreds of missiles, I would pretend that one missile came from Iran and shoot it down. Then all the Arabs will go against Iran, and it will be the end of the problems. You make them fight with each other, this bunch of lunatics. Never too late. You deal with a bunch of cowards. The Israeli leaders, they just want to pass the week. Let us survive this week. They don't think long term.
So what he's basically saying is he'd pretend to shoot one missile that came from Iran and drop it on Alaska. Then all the Arabs will go against Iran. You make them fight with each other. They can rebuild their third temple. But if they're like openly saying that this is what we're going to do, aren't people going to not? I don't think people will fall for it. I think Michael's right. This is going to backfire in their face. All the best laid plans of mice and men, they've been openly telling that that's what they want, and then they're going to pretend that Iran targeted the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Come on, Don. Do you think people fall for it?
Well, they've already done that with the girls' school. I mean, clearly that was us or Israel, and they've already claimed no, Iran did it to themselves. And much like they're talking about the Iran bombings at Saudi Arabia's oil fields, I think. And Saudi Arabia said, well, that doesn't make any sense. And Iran said, why would we do that? So the problem with false flags is that they're so transparent. They never were any good. Going back to, the Maine in 1898, Pearl Harbor, Lusitania, weapons of mass destruction, Operation Northwoods, which they tried and JFK, vetoed. They've never been any good at them. Anybody that has critical thinking ability, which unfortunately are not most Americans, sees through them very quickly. So whatever false flag they have this time will be seen through immediately. It won't be good, because that's what I try to tell people. They're conspirators. They run our lives. That doesn't mean they're smart. They don't have to be. They have power, and so they're really bad at what they do. So if it's a false flag, it'll be obvious. It'll be, something where Israel obviously did it, and they'll blame it on Iran. It'll work with some people, but I get the sense, I'm trying to maintain hope. I think more and more people here, especially with so much talk being allowed openly about Zionist power and Zog and all these things, I think that people are going to be more skeptical than ever. And so I'm hoping it won't work, but who knows?
You're right, and me and Don have talked extensively about this in our bewilderment. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, others, including that former UFC fighter who's been talking openly about this
Jake
stuff.
Shields, I think.
Jake Shields and Jake Shields TV and all those great parodies they're doing is just running. And Rumble here, thank you, Rumble. I bless you, because we're not being censored. We're being allowed to talk about this. If this is on, if we'd have tried this 3 years ago, we might all be headed to re-education camps. I mean, this is insane. And I think you're on to something. What do you think, Matt? I mean, this could backfire in their face because they've been projecting it. They were showing what they want, and the false flags are not working anymore. We're waking up as a society. The critical mass has finally been reached. And I always talked about after 9/11, I said, if we keep this up and we keep fighting it and keep bringing it to people's attention and not just give up, we can make more people understand it. We can hit critical mass, because the American Revolution was only 10, 15% of the people that fought it, and they won it. When an idea's time has come, even a minority can be critical mass, correct?
No, the American Revolution was set up by a bunch of Satanists. Don't. No. So look, the thing I would say, a wounded animal is not less dangerous than a not wounded animal. I think that you're right. The Zionists are feeling more exposed than they have tended to feel over the past, century of enjoying vast amounts of power unchallenged. That's falling away, I think, for the first time ever, or at least since the beginning of the Cold War. The U.S., under recent polling data, demonstrated that more people side or sympathetic with the Palestinian cause over the Jewish cause, or the Zionist angle in what's going on right now in the Middle East. That's big. That's a big deal, that crossover actually happened. And it doesn't look like that trend is going to be abating anytime soon. So the fact that they are so obsessed with destroying the Al-Aqsa Mosque as part of their ritual to create Solomon's temple and bring in the Messiah and purge the world of anybody who's not among the chosen, I think that's something more and more people can look at. Whether or not we're wise enough to avoid, or at least know what we're looking at when a false flag does hit, I don't know. I think that a big chunk of what's going on right now has a lot to do also with a realignment of world systems, not just the Middle East per se. Obviously, the Greater Israel invocation is a big one. I think it has a lot to do with the Mystery Babylon idea too. Like, I was reading one of these Plymouth Brethren, the esoteric or the exclusive brethren that Darby set up. One of his key colleagues was this guy George Pember, who wrote a series of very useful books on Mystery Babylon, which went on to inform major esoteric planning, including the followers of Shaftesbury and others, in terms of how to create a situation where you can convince the world diaspora of Jews to go and live in the desert to be a part of this ritual. And it's an irony that a lot of the people who did the most to set up the state of Israel were themselves rabidly anti-Semitic and would have preferred to see the Jews die. It's an interesting irony, but not unlawful, and it's not. It makes sense when I read the writings of Pember, who had this view that in order to fulfill prophecy, you had to sort of create in his mind a new Babylon that would be a domain of momentary prosperity that would then usher in the Antichrist and do all of the other things. So I do think that when I look at Greater Israel as far as what it is on the map from the Nile to the Euphrates, and I compare it to Nebuchadnezzar's Babylon, it's not that different. And I do think that that Herzl and somebody in the chat had pointed out that Herzl had made a comment he actually made many comments celebrating the usefulness of anti-Semitism in Europe to help the Zionist cause. I think that part of what I'm holding down in my mind right now is the idea that Israel, as it's being constructed, is designed to be ultimately a mass time bomb that will murder all of the Jews who went along with this, as well as a lot of the Arabs living in that region, for a higher satanic elite. So that's a concern I have, and I do hope people are wise enough to not let that happen. but I'm not convinced. And I think a lot of it also has to do with destabilizing America's enemies, or nations that don't want to commit mass harakiri on some altar of Gaia. And that includes Russia, China, and other nations of Eurasia that have to be targeted for destabilization. And what's going on in the Middle East, I think, also plays into that, as well as this whole new Monroe Doctrine 2.0 in the Western Hemisphere. I think that's all part of one giant game.
And we've talked about that before, the idea of the technate, that's why they're talking about Greenland and Canada, the 51st state. They want to bring basically Orwell's vision, of separate, one world order with separate people running the one world order, always at war with each other, always in tension with each other to keep control. So we've talked about that before, but we've reached the end of this, and I want to leave off with going through the panel of their disclosing thoughts. And since E. Michael Jones is here, I want to highlight, go to his website called culturewars.com, subscribe to it, and read. I mean, he's got Donald Trump sails a ship of state into troubled waters. Donald Trump, that's actually a great, everything's going down, but he's firm and resolute, and he's going to go down with the ship. I bet he bails at the last minute. But many articles, Nick Fuentes, Myth-Based Racism and the Martyrs of Uganda, Donald Trump sails, America's Original Sin, the 1787 coup. We could talk about that. The School of Salamanca, a review of I mean, if you really want to know what's going on, this is a great, and he's got videos on BitChute. Please follow him, get to know what he's talking about, and become aware, because I think Mr. Jones has got he's got a handle on the pulse of what's going on. I find him uplifting in a weird way. I mean, he's showing all these horrible things that are going to happen, but there is a hopeful outcome at the end, because you're talking about a new republic, a renewal. What Jefferson talked about, watering the refreshing the tree of liberty. And please your final thoughts on that theme. Thank you.
Yes, our deliverance is at hand.
Thank you, God. And Mr. Salim Mansur, your final thoughts. Do you believe that deliverance is at hand? It might get worse before it's going to get better, but the best laid plans have often, and all that blowing back in their faces. And with the rise of the global South and China and Russia coming together and all that stuff, I mean, I'm not a big fan of their system. Like during COVID, I sure wouldn't want to be a Chinese person. But I have a friend, Russell Dobular of Do Dissidents, who's right now traveling through the Southeast Asia. He's been to Vietnam, Laos, all these countries. He said it's great there. He went to China. He said these wonderful. It's like a science fiction novel. They're way ahead of us in infrastructure and all that stuff. And they're not. And China's not fighting any wars, and they're investing all their funds and everything back into their own people. And when they do interactions with other countries, it's through trade, building ports and all that stuff. And they might hold a sword of Damocles over the head and the idea of credit and debt and all that stuff. But they're not bombing anybody to get this done. What do you think, Salim?
Well, Michael reminded us about Hegel's cunning of history. I also like Hegel's great observation: the owl of Minerva flies at dusk, and then we will know what history has been all about. I think in that sense, what I said, the Eurocentric age, which begins with the Age of Discovery and Columbus 1492, basically ended in 1992. And this was, let me say it in this way, it was the rigor mortis of the Eurocentric age that we are going through, and the Eurocentric age is over, as it was bound to be over at a certain point in time. And what comes next? My final thought for this session is that the Iranians is, in that sense, the weapon of the cunning of history to resolve all the various contradictions. You have the leadership of Iran. They were, in a sense, and are, in a sense, the intellectual progeny of the people who passed on the ancient knowledge of Greece and Rome to the West.
That's true.
St. Thomas Aquinas was a student, in a sense, of Ibn Rushd or Averroes, through whom he got his Aristotle. So anyhow, here you have the leader, for instance, the Secretary of the Supreme Security or National Council, of Iran at the present time is a man by the name of Ali Larijani, and he's not alone. But Ali Larijani is a man who has devoted his life to the study of Immanuel Kant and written 3 major books on Immanuel Kant, which is studied in the West, from the perspective of the Persian background. And the same with the foreign minister. He is also a doctorate in the question of international law, going back to Grotius and Jean Bodin and so on and so forth. So you have a leadership. I mean, Ali Khamenei was a scholar. Same was with Ayatollah Khomeini. One of the great books on Iran is called The Mantle of the Prophets by Roy Mutahadeh, who taught at Harvard and Princeton. It's a classic. It's a great book that should be read by people. And then you have Donald Trump from the Epstein file, an empty vessel who listens to the last man who has spoken to him.
Hey, he wrote Art of the Deal. Come on.
Art of the Deal, of course, somebody wrote it for him.
He has a board game.
Then you have the people around him. Look at it, Pete Hegseth, a phony Templar, an total empty head. Marco Rubio, Susan Wiles, this woman that you played, White, whatever she is, a bimbo who is now the spokesman for the crypto Jews. So this is where, was it not H.L. Mencken who says the ultimate wish of the Americans to find one of them in the White House and he will be the moron in chief or something like that, the moron, So that's exactly what the West has come to. I mean, in this,
I do believe that, paraphrasing that more, he said the ultimate dream of the American citizen will come true when the president is a complete ignoramus.
Something, yeah, exactly. So this is where it has come. I mean, it's no longer an irony. This is just as the end days of the Roman Empire. Go back and read Gibbons. You had clowns like Caligula and others. So this is where the West has come. I mean, you have nobody in Britain, in France, in Germany, United States, nobody that you can say is a leader of virtue or have any sense of the meaning of what virtue stands for, because they have no transcendent idea, no transcendent ideal. They are the worshippers of the golden calf. And that's what it is all about.
Yes, and so Matthew, I'm going to play your little scroll here if I can find it. Here we go. Where your final thoughts and where people can find you, Matt?
Yeah, and Linda Craig just put in the chat Idiocracy, which is a pretty funny movie that I thought was just fiction until now I'm realizing it was actually a predictive documentary featuring a World Wrestling Federation icon that becomes president of America 500 years in the future when society is suffering from famine and starvation because they haven't realized that the Gatorade Corporation that convinced everybody somewhere in the past to use Gatorade instead of water is not good for crops. And anyway, check out the movie. I would just say, I guess, quote from an old friend of mine who said something that always resonated with me, that history doesn't really repeat. It's fools that repeat history. I love that quote. It's a good quote. Because it puts it back. It makes it less of like you can't be a voyeur when you take that type of approach, because we're part of the thing we're talking about. We are living in history. We have the chance to. We're not just like our fault is, or our fate is not sort of locked into our stars, but in ourselves. If we choose to be or allow ourselves to be underlings, paraphrasing Cassius from Julius Caesar. So I think that, we're in a position right now where we all have free will, we all have a mind, we all have a conscience. We can figure out how to use these things better or not use them and have these things get worse. But I think a time of crisis is a good time to learn new skills and lean into the unknown. So for people listening, take this crisis moment as a time when your mind is going to be more receptive to receiving and imparting profound ideas pertaining to human beings, to God's creation, and figure out how to capacity build fast. Because other people definitely are going to have that resonance increase a lot during a time of crisis when all of their normal reference points disappear. There's nothing, the things we thought were there to hold on to are not really there to hold on to. So again, people's minds will be moving, their hearts are going to be moving, they're going to be more open. There's also a lot of psyops, because the oligarchy knows this, they're not that they're stupid in some ways, but they're smart in other ways, and they do know this is something that happens. So I think, you're going to notice an increased array of false narratives strewn throughout the minefield to capture people who are increasingly going to want to think outside the box and to redirect.
And I want to quickly interject, because with the coming of AI, there's
Yeah.
so much deep fakes going out there. You're going to have people believing stuff that's complete horseshit.
Totally, dude. Yeah. So just be aware, be careful. Don't try to believe in anything you can't prove to be true, and be as rigorous as you can. But yeah, hopefully we can learn from history here and not let not let tragedy happen yet again. It's happened way too much throughout human civilization. So hopefully we can wisen up.
I do believe that, and you can follow Matt at the risingtidefoundation.net and follow him at Twitter X. Go to Twitter and go at Ehret_Matthew. Follow his meanderings there. And thank you so much, Matt, for taking the time, for showing up. And we'll end off with the legendary, the great Don Jeffries, the most underpublicized genius of our time. And a lot of people think me and Don agree on everything, but we don't agree on everything exactly. I kind of push back when nobody's looking against his ideas of this sports book he's coming up with, where he's going to talk about the perils of white athletes. But it's I don't know. This is going to be
the most controversial one I've written.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, Don, where can people find you? And your final thoughts, please.
My Substack's the only place I'm not shadow banned. DonaldJeffries.substack.com. I protest. I want to shout out to Alan Holman, who I see in your chat room. Alan was one of the first names I recognized years ago when I had my podcast. So it's good to see him. I haven't seen him in a while. So he's made his way over here, and I'm glad to see you have a good man.
Yes, I'll have to have Alan on my show sometime.
He's a Canadian, right? Yeah.
He's a Canadian, and I want to impart this story that me and Alan are actually involved in. George W. Bush came to Saskatoon after he left the presidency for a tour promoting local oil and gas. And he did a talk at the Centennial Auditorium here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. My brother knew how much I hated George W. Bush, so he got me 2 tickets. So I had 2 tickets to go see George W. Bush lie about the Iraq War and talk about the great opportunities that were coming in the oil and gas sector here in Saskatchewan. So me, I at the time, I was a part of the 9/11 Truth Movement, and Alan was one of them. And I said, I got to have Alan come along with this. So me and Alan went in there, and we went at first, and you got to go through the metal screening and everything. We couldn't bring in any protest stuff, but I was planning on going up and saying something profound like, "You liar," or something like that. I was going to stand up in the middle, but I was too chicken. And then I had to pee. So I had to, halfway through his freaking interminable speech, there was one point where George W. Bush started talking about the torturing of the Muslim guy. I forget what his name. They tortured him like 108 times, the supposed ringleader. And he said, and if I had to do it again tomorrow, I would do it again. So, what I'm talking about is he was moralizing over the torture incident stuff. And I was just about to stand up and say something. And Alan jumped ahead of me and said, "That's a lie." Right out in front of everybody, eh? I mean, it was beautiful. And all these people that were there, all these little millennial guys in their suits who were there to worship George W. Bush, tried to shout him down and everything. And he turned around and he stood his ground and said, "Free speech still exists in Canada," and sat back down. I'm so impressed with Mr. Alan Holman. He had the guts, I didn't. And then I had to run away and go pee because I was just bursting. And so I went into the bathroom. By the time the speech was over, I was coming out of the bathroom. Alan was coming along, and he was walking with some purpose. And I said, "Thank you so much, Mr. Alan Holman, for having the guts to come out and say that," because he's the only guy who had the guts to say something.
Nobody backed him up.
And, well, no, I backed him up. I was standing beside him. I would have beat anybody down who tried to go at him. I'm 6'3", 220. He's a little guy, but hey, those little guys are often the toughest too. So anyway, thank you, Alan, and thank you for showing up tonight. And you can find Don Jeffries at iProtest@substack.com. Follow his iProtest on YouTube. Thanks everybody in the chat, especially Alan, all you guys. Alan has something to say. R.B. Ham might be over-exaggerating, but people did give blowback to anything I tried. Yes. Yeah. But I mean, you had the guts to say something, and I'm so impressed. Thank you, Mr. Michael Jones. And I hope you can come back again sometime. and I won't have, I'll have a more limited panel so we can get more of your thoughts out there. And I really need to see you and Mr. Matthew Ehret have a podcast, just you two talking about all these things, because that would be fascinating and mind-blowing. And of course, the great Salim Mansur, thank you so much for appearing once again and imparting your depth and wealth of knowledge. You've read books I'll never have time to read, even if I lived 3 or 4 lifetimes. I don't know how you cram it all in, but you're an amazing lecturer in what you talk about, and you make things easy for people to understand. And I think people like you are so important to this world, because you're the bridge between a lot of what the Occidentalists here in the Western world, they can't get past their hatred of Muslims because of the cultural conditioning, and you cut through that. And I want people to remember this, that the most quoted prophet in the Quran is Jesus Christ. So there's something to be said for that. So thank you, Salim. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you, Matt. And
thank you. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Yes,
thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Wow, that was quite the program. It's tough to follow too. I mean, but I tried to do my best, and I tried to end it with the idea of the Alaska Moss thing, because if that happens, it's going to be, everything's going to blow up. We don't know which way it's going to go, but I always go back to that maxim: the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. And we think these controllers and these, people that think they have this plan to go forward and make this kind of new world order happen in their name without our input, I think they're in for a rude awakening, because people are waking up, and we have a great race towards either the Great Reset or the Great Awakening. And I'm betting on the awakening, because I love all you guys for showing up here. And I'll be playing us out with another version of my theme song. And remember, conventional wisdom is simply conventional deception. If you want to get to the truth, you just have to go beyond the pale. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Love you. Bye.
They send our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reasons, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings. They parade through our towns. They distract and divide us with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Their anti-human agenda, it's plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold, heartless play. Eat insects, they sneer, while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal, with a tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedom's all seized. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end, twisting truth in their grip till our minds sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond their pale lies the truth they conceal. A world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the veil, then boy, that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where their power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will prevail. They send our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reasons, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings. They parade through our towns. They distract and divide us with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Their anti-human agenda, it's plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold hardness play. Eat insects, they sneer, while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal, with a tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedom all cease. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end, twisting truth in their grip till our minds start to bend. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Order out of chaos, their sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond their pale eyes, the truth they conceal, a world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where their power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will prevail.